Hello and welcome to Full Tech Ahead. I'm your host, Amanda Razani, and with me today I have Szymon Kulec. He is a lead developer advocate for RavenDB. How are you doing today?
Very good, very good. I'm quite happy that we are having this conversation and that potentially will cover some quite interesting capabilities of RavenDB and AI in general.
Absolutely. Well, share about yourself and your background, and then what does RavenDB do?
Yes, my background is computer science from the very beginning. So I was involved in .NET technology and worked with it for a while now. With RavenDB, what RavenDB does is one of these NoSQL databases, which we say as it's not only SQL. It has quite an amazing indexing capabilities, also sharding, and many, many distributed features. And lately at the top, we put the data, AI, vector search, and agents. So this creates quite an interesting mixture, and I think it provides quite a nice offer for the end user to work with.
Awesome. I always hear that SQL is what everyone needs for data analytics, and that can be difficult to learn, especially if you're not, a big technical person. So tell me more about this NoSQL.
Yeah, so in regards to the being no SQL, and as we say, as I already mentioned, not only SQL, what RavenDB does is it has a really quite an interesting approach towards processing, ingesting, and then indexing your data. So RavenDB, what it tries to be, it tries to be as boring as possible for you as the end user, which should allow you to just work with it. And then it will deal with any hiccups that you might have with regular SQL databases. Thinking like indexing, keeping your data fresh and nicely searchable. With RavenDB, you are covered.
Okay. And then you mentioned AI agents. Of course, we're hearing all about AI agents these days. And I know that you recently released a new native AI agent. Can you talk about that and what impact you think that will make?
Yes, definitely. So, as you know, AI is the buzzword right now, and everyone is mentioning AI all over the place. What we took and what we did with RavenDB is that we put the agents as close to data as possible and as safe as possible. So just let me elaborate on that. Probably you heard about the MCP. If you haven't, this is like the new standard, the API for the LLMs that they can use to query the tools or the data sources. And then with RavenDB, our integration and our agents, what they do is that they allow you to create agents with a really minimal overhead, and then they allow you to make them safe by default. What I mean by that is that if you forbid it to query some data, imagine like payroll data, some health related stuff, from regulated industries, then it will be strictly forbidden, and Raven will ensure that this contract won't be breached. So on one hand, you have quite a nice embedded capabilities where you have a database that it keeps the track of the conversation. It can do summary for you, meaning that you won't bleed tokens with your LLM. And then you have these query capabilities that can be as limited as you need them to be. So there is the risk of having a breach or any kind of prompt injection or jailbreak. This is not going to happen.
So let's talk about data. It's so important. It's the backbone of everything, it seems like. So real-time data. Why is that critical? And why do companies have difficulties getting good, accurate, real-time data agility?
Yeah, so one thing that is worth to mention is that with all these models, they need to be trained on something, and usually it takes months, weeks, or even sometimes maybe not, maybe years. What you want to have is that you want to have the ability to reach to the data that you need at the specific context. One thing that is used to address such a requirement are RAG solutions. So you can imagine that your model will just use a third party to retrieve some data. But then you can think like, okay, but maybe not only RAG, maybe I want to query the data in some other way. And then the capabilities provided with RavenDB and by RavenDB, you can think of them, okay, if you need to have, for example, the semantic search, like the vector search, yes, if you use agents with Raven, you will have the vector search capabilities provided by Raven. If you need to search something not in a semantic manner, but like we discussed, for example, you need to retrieve payroll data, some health related, you can also put or define a query that will be used by agent just in time. So you can think of it as using an external LLM model, then having some data in Raven, and then what Raven and its capabilities provides is the glue that allows you to use the data just in time as you need it.
Awesome. Okay. So let's move on to my next question, which is developers want to move fast, but with the new AI systems, it requires careful data management and compliance. So, how do you see enterprises striking that balance?
Yes, we already mentioned the MCP, which is right now the standard for the model to something, let's say, communication. MCP allows you to provide a variety of things. Probably the most important one is tools, which allow you or your agent or model, however you want to name it, to perform some actions. And now some of the MCP servers, let's say, aren't that safe, meaning that they allow quite a lot. And if you can convince your agent or model, again, the jailbreaking thing, it might use the tooling in, let's say, not a correct way. Again, with the Raven, like I already described, you can limit the capabilities and the query capabilities in a very nice manner. So when you think about, okay, I want to develop something, usually it could be the case that you would just install MCP and have a direct access to a database. But then you might fall into this scenario where again an agent would be jailbroken, and then you, for instance, you drop your database or do something terrible. With a limited capabilities that are narrowed specifically to the scenario, meaning as broad as needed and as narrow as possible, you are on the safe path to deliver what is needed.
Got it. Well, we know that technology is advancing quite rapidly. So, looking toward the future of data-driven AI, what do you envision the relationship between databases and AI evolving into?
Oh, that's a great question about the future. And probably I will be wrong, but in any case, I will try to do my best to answer. So I think that what we are seeing right now, and I'm not talking only about the Raven, but also other participants of the market, is that what you don't want to do probably is that you don't want to work on the gluing, meaning that, okay, I have some data, I have some nice model, and there is the gluing that needs to happen. And probably that part will be also, and in Raven it is already, delegated to the third party, that someone will provide you a nice gluing capabilities that will allow you to have the data, have the most recent, the best model that you can imagine, and then you just almost like kind of configure it instead of writing thousands or tens of thousands of lines of code. So this is what I'm thinking it will be moving, the direction that it will be moving into, that it will be, the gluing part will be handled by something else, and you will just, if I may say so, shape it or direct it in a way that it will just work for you, for your specific business case.
Much more efficient.
Oh, yes, definitely. If I may refer to an example, lately in Raven, we did like an HR sample that was actually around 700 lines of code or less. So this is like a really small piece of code, and that was delivering a whole HR, like HR capabilities for an employee. Yeah, so this is quite amazing.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. Well, if there was one key takeaway you could leave our audience with today, what would that be?
I would say do not use the tooling bluntly, like read about the tools that you will use, but also delegate as much as you can to the tooling that you use, so that you don't spend like countless hours, days, or weeks on delivering something that can be just some glue provided by third-party infrastructure.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your insights with our audience today.
Thank you very much for having me. That was a pure pleasure.
Yes. And thank you to our listeners. Stay tuned. There's more.